Ahoy, travelers, and welcome back to the Temple of Kung Fu. As always, I'm your host, the Shaolin Kid, and tonight's tale is Revenge of the Shogun Women, also known as 13 Golden Nuns. This was released in 1977. It is a Taiwanese kung fu action film. Also, if you didn't notice, it was made for 3D. And gonna jump right into it. This film is very not focused on the story. Like, this is probably, like, you know, most martial arts stories, like, are usually focused on the action, but, like, the story is, like, there, and it's, like, a really important part. But really, the story isn't not, like, that prominent at all in this movie, right? You'd expect it. I mean, it's called Revenge of the Shogun Women, but the Shogun Women just aren't really focused on that much. I mean, sure, they're in it, and they're, like, characters in it. But the real focus of the movie are, like, the villagers that the bandits are attacking. Because, like, the story is about, you know, the story's, like, basically boils down to there's a village, and there's bandits. And bandits attack a lot of villages and pillage, you know, and do all bad, crazy shit. They do it to one village, and then all the women that they did bad things to become the nuns, right? They become, like, ass-kicking nuns, and they live on the convent. But then there's another village where the bandits attack that village, and then they go up to the mountains to the convent to get help, and then the bandits chase them up there. They fight a lot, the villagers fight a lot with the bandits, and then it's a final battle at the convent with the nuns, where eventually the evil bad guys are vanquished, and the nun comes out on top because all the other ones die except for the main one. And there's also a doctor and his wife there too. They're like the main characters. Well, maybe the doctor I feel like is the main character, but even then, this movie doesn't really even have like a central. I mean, yeah, there's obviously like the bandits want a formula that the doctor knows. They want something from him. Right? But overall, this film is very action-based. Like, the action and the kung fu is the main point of this film. And obviously, being made for 3D, there's a lot of, like, cheese, like, ooh, 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 you know what I mean? There's a lot of that, where they're, like, instead of, like, showing them getting stabbed, normally, they, like, have their, like, spear, their sword, or whatever, and they go, you know what I mean? Like, they shove it in front of the camera, right? For the, like, the crazy 3D effect. But I watched this in 2D, so whenever that happened, it was just kind of awkward, just kind of like that, you know what I mean? But then another thing about this film is that even though as I said, it sounds like a revenge story, it's not. It's really not. As I said, the Shogun aren't really focused on, villagers are more focused on. And overall, yeah, action more important. And I'm fine with that, but I feel like this is one of the kung fu films that's, like, the least important part of the movie is the story. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, I feel like this is the definition of, like, a film you just go to the drive-in and dick around. You know what I mean? Like, you'd go to the drive-in, and you don't really even have to pay that much attention to it. You know? You just watch it, you have a fun time, you dick around with your friends, and then you leave. Right? Eat popcorn. It's a popcorn movie. It's a literal definition of that. And I'm fine with that, but I don't know. I just kind of wish there was more, because you guys know how much I love Kung Fu formula. I love the Kung Fu formula of, you know, the evil, vile villain taking on the courageous hero, and, you know, the villain being so evil and villainous and hateable, and then the hero, like, coming in, you know, you guys know, I talk about it every time, like, with the formula, but this film doesn't really have that, right? Like, sure, the villain is hateable enough, but he's not, to me, he's, like, doesn't do too much. You know what I mean? I feel like the bandits obviously are bad, but we don't really get them fleshed out enough. The main bad guy doesn't even have a name. He's just Chief Bandit. The main villain of the movie doesn't even have a name. That is just the textbook example of showing you how little they cared about the story. Which, again, I'm fine with. I just kind of wish they'd done more because, yes, there's a bunch of fighting, but you haven't given me a good reason to care about the fighting. You know what I mean? I think that's a pretty decent understanding, is that, like, when characters are fighting, you have to, like, understand what both sides are fighting for so you can get invested, you know what I mean, and root for one side or the other. You know, like, you have to have understandable motivations. I mean, obviously there's understandable motivations, but they're kind of surface level. You know what I mean? Like, oh, the nuns, they're not even really fighting to get revenge. Like, 2 of them were, but the rest of them were just kind of fighting to defend their convent, right? Which is just, like, that's pretty basic. And the bandits, I mean, they're fighting, I guess, for more complex reasons because well, not even really. They just want to kill everybody in the village because they're bandits. They're just bad guys. You know what I mean? They're just evil. They want to kill people and pillage. You know what I mean? That's what they want to do. So essentially, the main problem with this movie is there's just no fucking main character at all. There's no main character whatsoever. Which kind of is why the story is very weak. Because there's nobody, like, that is the main focus of the story. Like, the story is really just this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens. And there's no, like, structure because there's no main character to drive the plot, right? Sure, there's a main villain, but, like, the closest character we have to a main character is the Doctor, but not even that, because he's not even really in that many scenes to be the main character, you know what I mean? And he's not even a fighter. He's just some doctor, you know what I mean? So then you'd expect the, like, leader of the nuns to be the main character, but she's not, because she's not even really in it that much, except for, like, the final battle and the scenes where at the convent, where they're at the convent. And overall, the story's just weak, but that doesn't hinder the enjoyment of the film. That just kind of hinders my investment into it. You know, I can still have fun with it, but to get invested, kind of was hard to get invested in what was going on. But overall, I had a lot of fun with the action parts of the movie. The action was very well done. It was big. There was, like, an action scene every, like, 10 minutes. There was a fuck ton of action scenes. And they were just getting them in there. Like, get an action scene in there, action scene here, action scene there, action scene there. This is jam-packed with fighting. So, really, the main reason you're watching this film is to watch the action, right? And the cheesy 3D effects. But that stuff is great. I am fine with that. And overall, that was where most of my enjoyment, if not all my enjoyment, stemmed from, was some of the ridiculous action from this film. Not too ridiculous, but some of it was pretty dumb. Like, the villain got his fucking scalp ripped off, and then he headbutted a tree and then died. Yeah, that's pretty dumb. And then, obviously, the film just kind of ends. After that, there's, like, no falling action. You know, it just ends at the climax. Which, I mean, yeah, there's... What falling action would there be? There's not even a main character. But, yeah. Overall, I had a lot of fun with this film, even though the story was very weak and kind of non-existent. But, overall, I would recommend this film for Kung Fu fans, because I still think that the Kung Fu itself is enough for a recommendation, and I do think you could get some enjoyment out of it. So, overall, I think I'd rate this film a 7 out of 10. Very, very enjoyable. And I would recommend it. And, yeah, I think that's what I need to say. Thank you for my piece. So, guys, hope you like this video. Share with friends, subscribe, turn the notification on, comment below how much you liked it. So, you know, thanks for stopping by the temple. Really appreciate the support. And, as always, I've been the Shaolin Kid. Buddha be praised. Freeze frame ending! Oh! Guys, always remember this. Always remember to keep Buddha in your heart. Spirituality is very important.